Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Clayton.
And my name is James.
It's the Clayton and James show. James, how are we?
I'm all right, thanks, mate. Episode 3. No one's sacked us yet.
Not yet.
I feel like you should come up with your own intro for this. Maybe a little jingle or something. Or
I can do that. If you're giving me
uh,
creative freedom to come up with a
Wagwan
jingle.
Generals, because that's like your favorite thing.
I feel like that's exclusive for patrons, isn't it?
It ain't now, is it?
No. What have we got on the menu today?
Some bits and bobs. We're going to talk a little bit on transfers. We're going to talk about Everton a little bit. We're going to talk about FPL Game Week 3 Captaincy. I'm going to do a little bit of nostalgia on this day at the end for you. Clay, it's one that you're particularly going to love this week, by the way. But we thought we should start with obviously the sad passing of Sven-Goran Eriksson, who it's not come as a shock. It's still very saddening that he's passed. It was announced in January that he had cancer and was probably quite unlikely to make it through the year. He'd sent a post out, I think, on Friday, pretty much saying goodbye to everybody. It was quite
Yeah, it
sad.
was really surreal reading that.
Yeah, and then so when the news arrived, I think was it Monday? I think.
It was Monday, yeah.
In fact, my wife told me that he'd passed, and I think that speaks volumes. We was out, me and the other half, and Harry were out, and the missus said to me, "Oh, Sven's passed away." And my missus got very little interest in football. She knows who Sven is. A lot of people know who Sven is. I think forever ingrained in English football psyche as the first non-Englishman to manage the England football team. And when he first came in, everybody thought he was the greatest thing that had ever existed because suddenly we started playing some very good football.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Um, no coincidence whatsoever that the likes of Ashley Cole and Stephen Gerrard suddenly come into the team. Like there was a few players that suddenly he was able to put into the team who were just about ready, and it had obviously been really bad beforehand at Euro 2000 under Kevin Keegan. What I think people will largely forget with Sven though is just how successful he was prior to taking the England job in 2001. He won the Swedish League title in Gothenburg in 1982 and won the UEFA Cup, what is now the Europa League, in the same year. A Swedish club won the UEFA Cup. He moved to Benfica. He then got to the UEFA Cup final again, actually lost in the final to Anderlecht in 1983, but won the league title with Benfica in 83, 84. Also during the second spell with Benfica in 1991, he also won the league. He took them to the European Cup final in 1990, now the Champions League final. Lost to AC Milan in the final. Won the Coppa Italia 4 times. Roma 86, Sampdoria 1994, and twice with Lazio in 1998 and 2000. They also won the last ever UEFA Cup Winners' Cup final when Lazio beat Mallorca at Villa Park in 1999. And also the same year as that final Coppa Italia, won Lazio's second league title in their history, becoming champions. They did spend a fair amount of money.
I had no idea about some of those stints that he was at. Like I think so. I'm 29, right? I was born in 95. What year did he become England manager?
At 2001, so after Lazio won the title.
See. So I was 6 years old. So yeah, I think I don't. I remember some of the memorable moments and tournaments, like beating Germany in Germany and stuff like that. But that's not from my memories of seeing it live. It's like watching it back. So I only really remember him as an England manager. So hearing that those kind of achievements is
Yeah, and I think that's
new
a
to
lot of
me.
people, even maybe people knew, oh, he was the title winner at Lazio. England went from where he was still obviously with Lazio having just won the title after Kevin Keegan stepped down after the disastrous final game against Germany at the old Wembley Stadium. And originally a deal was struck for Ericsson to take over the following summer.
Okay.
And then Lazio's results started turning bad once that was public. And it was public information he was going to take the England job at the end of the season. So they asked him to step down. And then so he took over England earlier in the winter, and it was just as well, I think, because
What
then
was
that qualifying period, because we lost at home to Germany, and then under Howard Wilkinson we drew in Finland 0-0. Ray Parlour had a shot, hit the bar and bounced down on the line. Yeah, Ray Parlour. Only Ray Parlour, as Chelsea
I
fans
mean,
would tell you.
yeah.
especially Tim Lovejoy. Um, so it was like we were in massive trouble to qualify, right?
Was he
And then suddenly
welcomed
we
with?
we like I said, we play in Albania. We put Ashley Cole in the team. I remember played Andy Cole in the game as well. He just rejuvenated it quite quickly.
Sure. And when it was announced that he was going to become the manager, was it welcomed with open arms? Obviously, you said like it was kind of known as the first non-English manager. So I bet in
Man,
2001 that was a bit
yeah, I mean, so
divisive.
this is going back to when I was 16. So, quite what the public psyche, I probably haven't got a great perspective to answer that. But I think there was, and there still is, largely a perception that the English football manager should be English. And I think that's largely a preference that we can all have. But I think Sven at least opened it up to feel okay. Then under Fabio Capello, it felt like that's not okay. Let's not do that again. Um, Sven came in, and whatever people had in terms of their preset mindsets of it, it's got to be an English manager. There wasn't any good English candidates, quite frankly, at the time. That when England started getting the positive results that then followed, especially obviously with the 5-1 win in Germany, I mean, it's England's best ever qualifying result
Is
ever.
that one of your best memories under Sven's
It's one of our
leadership?
best memories of any football match ever is
Yeah.
England that night against Germany. I've told you before, I was meant to go to a party that night and never made it. Ended up watching it in a pub in Borehamwood. It was nowhere near where I live, but was meant to be going to a party. Never made it because it was just too much celebration from that. Um, that was epic to beat Germany 5-1 in the qualifier. And then, of course, we nearly stitched ourselves up. We only had to win the last two games to go through, and we nearly threw it away against Greece. And obviously, David Beckham's famous, obviously, free kick goal. Um, and then at the World Cup, I think there was a brief moment when Mike Owen scored against Brazil. The way the draw had opened up, and so now it was going to be Turkey probably in the semi-final. Turkey or Senegal it would have been at the time, and then probably Germany, who had already battered 5-1 in the qualifier in the final. There was that brief moment, I think, where everyone was like, "We're going to win a World Cup here,"
Wow.
and it had been on the floor
Yeah.
18 months earlier. And he was also unlucky to go into that tournament with a few players got injured right on the eve of the tournament 2002. So Gary Neville was one who he didn't go because Danny Mills played at right back. Steven Gerrard was injured, didn't go, and Kieran Dyer was probably going to play left side of midfield for England, and he got injured in the final game of the season for Newcastle at Southampton. So actually had a few people taken away right on the eve of the tournament as well. Patched up Danny Mills. Nicky Butt had a pretty good tournament actually for England in 2002. It was like, okay, so it's a little bit almost like a hope restored.
Yeah.
It a little bit like when you kind of reflect on England in 2018, almost like the start of the journey again, the Colombia penalties and that. It wasn't quite that in 2002 because it suddenly, obviously, having won 5-1 in Germany, can imagine having England having a result like that. It's like, oh, we're the best in the world again,
Is that when
like
it's
that.
coming home
Now,
started?
yeah, now we've got a world class manager again. All that, um, and then 2004 there was real high hopes. Lost on penalties to Portugal. By the time it got to 2006, I think the mood had changed, where it had gone from, oh, this is a good start to almost like Southgate's journey. It was like, nah, now you got to win it. Now you got to win it. That kind of that peak of that 2006 golden generation of, I mean, the players we had in midfield,
Yeah,
Beckham,
it's absurd.
he shoehorned Beckham, Gerrard, Scholes, Lampard all into the same team in 2004. Scholes pulled out before 2006, but you could understand why he did that. So which one do you want to leave out from that? There was always a criticism of him was his inflexibility with tactics. He would pick his best players, and he's often said that himself, pick his best players rather than something to suit his idea of a system. I think the more it went on, people found the tactics quite negative. Whenever England played a major nation, we were very negative. We couldn't kick the ball. And I mentioned this recently that, comparing this England actually to the quality of that 2004, 2006 team, like individually, that team from 20 years ago was stronger,
Yeah.
much stronger, in my opinion. The basically Premier League legends throughout the whole team. And we lost in the qualifier for 2006. We lost the qualifier in Northern Ireland. It didn't matter, but it was the first time I think England had lost to Northern Ireland since the 1970s. And I think first time in Belfast since like the 1920s. It was a fairly seismic shock. The majority of that Northern Ireland team was like championship players and stuff like that. And that really didn't go down well with people to lose that game. And then people wanted him to go. He had, prior to the Euros, signed a contract to last till 2008. But then in the build up to 2006, there was lots of talk and murmurs and rumours about Chelsea. There was rumours about Manchester United when originally, obviously, a few years earlier, Sir Alex Ferguson had said he was going to step down, but then stayed on. Eriksson had been linked with the Chelsea job before Jose Mourinho was appointed. And then there was an undercover sting with a News of the World reporter who stitched Eriksson up basically to get Eriksson on tape to say that he would be happy to take the Aston Villa job because he'd been told that Aston Villa were getting bought by like a state, basically. Sorry, Villa fans, that didn't happen. Maybe you didn't want it. So then it was like, oh, okay, right, he's got to go after the World Cup. So let him do the World Cup. And it was flat.
Even that, I didn't know that kind of
flat.
background story though, going into the World Cup.
Yeah. So people, it felt a little bit going into it like this with Southgate. This will be the last one. People know. But careful what you wish for, right? Because fast forward, it was the Wally and the Brolly, and we never even qualified for the Euros at all. And the one thing about Eriksson under England was the qualifying record was absolutely brilliant. I think that Northern Ireland defeat, I think, was the only one in his 3 qualifying campaigns. The only game that we lost, I think.
Sure.
Despite having some challenging ones in there, like Germany away. I remember going to Poland in qualifying. We'd drawn in Austria, and there was real concern before we went to Poland. And he put Jermaine Defoe in the team, and Jermaine scored. Michael Owen might have got a winner maybe. But yeah, in the qualifying was really strong. Basically, we beat everyone under him until we played a good team, then we were done. That's how it was. He never won anything else in his career after the England job.
Really?
Except August Premier League Manager of the Month in his first season with Manchester City after City started with 3 wins and without a goal conceded. He actually beat Manchester United home and away in his only season. Of course, at the end of that season, the City takeover happened. And who knows, if he'd stayed through that summer, he might have been the first one to be in charge there with the money rather than Mark Hughes.
Yeah, what a career. Yeah, like I said, I didn't really know the extent of his career outside of England and Man City as well. So yeah, nicely
I
summarized.
think the big thing from, we obviously didn't know him, but we listen to other people talk about him, same word comes up all the time, gentleman.
Yeah.
Absolute gentleman, whatever he did. People really
Classy
valued
guy,
him
weren't he?
and respected him. I think when it's interesting when you listen to the England players from the golden generation, people say, "Oh, how good was he?" I'm seeing an interview with Rio Ferdinand recently. It wasn't an interview; it was actually during a game on BBC during the Euros, and Rio was asked about Sven and like how good was he as a manager, and he just took the conversation to how good he was as a man.
Yeah, I've seen that interview.
Which did leave me with an undercurrent feeling of you didn't rate him as a manager.
Yeah, but as
Quite
the man,
possibly.
like you say, I think it's always one of respect. That is the vibe I get when people talk about him.
He was exactly what England needed at the time that he was appointed. And also, people might remember he managed Leicester in the Championship. You also had a spell as a sporting director or a technical director at Notts County. When it suddenly looked like Notts County were going to push through the leagues. Remember when he who shall not be named went and played for Notts County?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Kasper
Number
Schmeichel also
23,
went there. Yeah, that didn't last.
Big Sol.
They changed it. That someone else took them over for Notts County, and they quickly run out of money and went down after I mean over 100 years in the football league. Notts County.
I was actually at the game where they went down. Weirdly enough, in Swindon.
Oh,
Random, yeah,
that is a random
yeah.
coincidence. Yes. He also managed several other nations. I didn't recall, for example, no recollection of this whatsoever that it was Ivory Coast manager at the 2010 World Cup.
Yeah, I do remember that actually.
No recollection of that
Yeah,
at all.
I wouldn't have remembered it now that unless you'd said it, but yeah.
No, also managed Mexico, Philippines, I think. He'd managed a couple of clubs in China as well, I think. But yeah, nothing won since taking the England job. And there's a catalogue of wow before that. So yeah, look, one of the great English managers. Also, he was heavily linked to the Manchester United and the Tottenham jobs in the late 1980s. So I think when Manchester United appointed Sir Alex Ferguson, Sven was the other
He
name
was
that
in
they
the
were
hat, was he?
considering. And at the time, that would have been really, really rogue to go and appoint someone from overseas into a club like that. And he was also quite heavily linked with the Tottenham job when Tottenham appointed Terry Venables in the late 80s as well. He actually agreed to become Blackburn manager in 1997. That was confirmed and announced, and he changed his mind once Lazio came in for him.
Fair play. I mean,
So it wasn't that much of a gentleman to Blackburn.
no, not to Blackburn, but to everyone else, it sounds like he was. Yeah, that's a very nice tribute. R.I.P. Sven. I listened to the main pod yesterday and I heard segue after segue after segue, which had Oasis in it. And I'm not really sure I have one to go to the next one. So I'm just going to go straight in and say next on the menu is FPL Game Week 3 Captaincy. It's a bit of a split, this one. Well, I think it's a split. I don't know what you think, but I don't, I, who do you think the standout favourite is right now? Obviously, Arsenal have Brighton at home. City have got West Ham away. Chelsea have Palace at home. They just put six past Wolves. I don't know if people will be thinking of Palmer. Do you think there's a standout one?
You could have gone, if you wanted a link, you could have said, we're going to go all around the world now, is where you could have gone.
I'm not an Oasis fanboy, unfortunately.
um, Captaincy is there isn't a standout this week, I don't think. Like Haaland away to West Ham is the one that we talk about, challenging away games is the sort of one, can you take it on? And this one falls into the borderline. I think the majority of Haaland owners will captain Haaland this week for two reasons. One, what he's just done. And also, that there are idiots like me that are probably not going to have him this weekend, and you want to punish people like me. And that's fair enough. But there isn't another outstanding candidate. Like Salah's got Forest at home in 4. If Salah had Forest at home this weekend, you are going, I maybe want to take this on. There isn't anything else that feels strong enough. But therefore, I also do think that it is the sort of weekend that you can still go for something and it might work in your favour if you can find the haul. Because do I look at Haaland at West Ham and think, you're going to go batshit this week, like the concern was the previous week? No, not particularly.
No, me either. But
So
then
it can still be taken on.
when you say no alternative standouts, like do you not think Saka at home to Brighton, Palmer at home to Palace? Are they
No,
not?
I just mean it's not like the Salah
It's not the
Forest
Salah
example,
one.
like I give them for, say, game week 4, where people still won't do it because then Haaland's got an amazing home game at home to Brentford. I think, yes, Saka at home to Brighton is really good. I still think Salah away to Manchester United is perfectly reasonable. I think Palmer at home to Crystal Palace, but I need some information from Thursday night because I would be cold, literally, on Cole Palmer if Palmer played over an hour in Switzerland on Thursday night. Considering last Thursday was like, well, Nkunku just played an hour again. That'll be fine for Sunday. And then it was weird.
Yeah,
So
I'd be
I wouldn't want to
surprised.
put the armband on him under that sort of circumstance. I don't think. I think Watkins away to Leicester is the sort of one he could do really well in. There's a concern, I think, that he's not quite at match fitness yet.
It's not going to stay that
And
way forever, though. He'll come good at some point
it
in this
also
run.
feels at the moment like John Duran will eat enough of his minutes to put you off that. I think Isak against my team is still a great shout this weekend. Um, I think with what I intend to do, I'll probably be going Palmer this week, but I won't make that decision till after Thursday night. It feels like enough unknown on Brighton at the moment for me to feel confidence in Saka. Like I'm not even sure who he plays against. I could
Yeah,
look at it on paper and go, Saka plays against Jack Hinshelwood. Does he?
and also
Is it the new
tactically,
boy Kadioglu go straight in the team, who I was quite
possibly.
impressed with at Euros, for example? There's enough there to make me question it, was I feel like it might unravel in the next couple of days where Palmer gets a little bit of a break Thursday night. Palace sell Mark Gay. Chaddy Riyad, who's come into the team, got injured last night in the Carabao Cup. Anderson's gone. And you might suddenly feel, the vibe at Palace just doesn't feel right at this moment. Attack it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've got in my mind at the moment.
How would if on your deadline stream you obviously do like top 10 captaincy options, right?
Oh,
If it was
Haaland will be top.
but like right now, if you had to do top 5 with the information you have, how would you rank them?
Haaland would definitely be first. And I think there's not enough in it, I think, for Haaland owners to go against it this week. I don't think so. He would be the one. If you ask me to pin me right now, I'd probably go Palmer, Saka, Salah, Isak, I think.
Yeah.
Isak above Watkins still
Do you
for
want
this
the
week.
do you want the FPL review
Oh, yeah,
free
go
model
on.
ones?
Go on, yeah.
Like, it wouldn't be a Clayton and James show without me chucking in a few
Is,
statistical
is
bombs.
Bumo quite high this week? I
He
don't.
is, yeah.
It's not terrible, but
Good
I feel
final
like
goal
the
against.
concern with Southampton more at the moment will be scoring goals than letting them in.
Yeah, I completely overlooked Brentford at home to Southampton. But FPL review, this is the free model, has game week 3 captain Haaland and Saka joint on 7.
Saka
Uh,
joint with Haaland.
yeah,
Okay.
Palmer second with 6.6, Bumo third, Foden, then Odegaard, then Salah, Havertz, Isaac, De Bruyne, Son, Watkins, and I'll chuck in Bruno Fernandes in there as well.
Yeah, you couldn't put Foden in now at the moment. We don't even know if it's going to start.
Yeah, I must say that was
Um,
based on his expected minutes on here is 83. So I haven't
Odegaard
tweaked it.
again, fine. You would never captain that over Saka, I don't think. And even if I was in a position, would I pick an Odegaard over like a Palmer this week? No, I don't think so. Um, Jota wasn't on that list, was he?
He's not, no.
No, but
But
I think that's acceptable with the fixture, obviously away to Manchester United. KDB,
he is in there.
that would feel like the real Manchester City alternative this week.
He's like around 12th in that list. So he's
Wow,
under Salah and Isaac. But again, it's his minutes are like expected 15 less than everyone else. So
don't think that's right for this week, actually.
they've got him as expected 75 minutes, whereas the rest are all like 82 plus.
Okay, yeah, I can understand. I don't particularly disagree with it, but I suspect you might get more out of it this week, and I think that's pretty good. It's almost certain starter this week, and that's a night. So if you wanted to take Haaland on within City this week, I think it would be De Bruyne rather than Foden. Would they have for Foden expected minutes this week?
83.
Yeah, I think that probably needs a bit of adjustment at the moment, considering Foden didn't play last week, was only a sub at Chelsea in game week 1. I don't think Foden probably starts this week.
Sure.
I wouldn't have thought. And there's obviously the looming spectre of Gundogan now for
Yeah.
both these clubs. I think,
He-
yeah, Haaland owners are not going to take that on for the majority. I think Palmer, it might just fall that it's right. And if you'd have said to me pre-season game week 3, I think I would have said Saka. So I understand the models having it that way, but it might be that I go Palmer.
Yeah, I own Haaland and Saka, and I've got it bust on Haaland with Vice Saka.
Yeah, I
Lovely
think that's right.
stuff. You mentioned Ilkay Gundogan last week on the Clayton and James show. We were speaking about obviously transfers and players, not players, teams that they could do with players in certain positions.
It's a whole
And
different podcast, Clates,
I
that we
was at the
released.
People's Poll.
That was last Tuesday. Yeah.
My bad. It was a People's Poll, not this one. But yeah, we were speaking through that. We said about City. I was more looking at do they need a hybrid, a 6'8". You were obviously speaking a lot more about Alvarez replacement number 10, and Ilkay's back in the house. I think that's a very good signing for them, unfortunately, as an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, I think it works. And I said on the pod yesterday that I think he will possibly, because of his age and stuff, now be the 9 if Haaland is unavailable. And at 6.5 in FPL, that can never be far from your thinking. That possibility could suddenly open up. Yeah, I wanted to cover off a few that I felt had dealt with the problems from what we looked at last week.
I
So
think my favorite one was my Spanish friend Joaquim Anderson. You talking about Fulham needing a right-sided centre back, and then they literally signed him the next day.
I mean, must credit massively Lewis James, who was really firm about that on Correspondent Week about the importance for a right-sided centre back. So I was saying, we also obviously covered the Paulinho loss a little bit with the son of Sandberg from Burnley.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
that was the position I thought they
Anderson
could
is
do
the
with.
exact sort of profile that, in fact, better than some of the other names they were being linked with, in my opinion. As discussed last week, I'm surprised that he's taken the choice to move. There's going to be something in that financially or a manager impact, or he doesn't like the system that Palace are playing that's moved that because it does feel, with respect to both clubs, it does feel very sideways. But that's Fulham sorting the problem. I think Bournemouth are at here we go stage for Kepa, I believe, for a
Okay,
loan deal. Um, he would become their number 1 under that circumstance. I think that's unquestionable.
that's a hell
So
of a
that
journey from him, isn't it? Like club career wise.
it's a hell of a journey for anyone to go from being a 70 plus million signing to going on loan to Bournemouth. Yeah. I think if you told a Bournemouth fan 15, 20 years ago, you'll be signing a 70 million pound goalkeeper on a loan, they would have assumed that Football Manager has gone tits up, I think. But that sorts their problem. Um, I think Brentford have obviously bought Van den Berg from Liverpool, quite a sizable sum of money. We identified that they did need something as a reinforcement defensively. He remains to be confirmed if he'll push for a starting spot or not. But I would suggest with the money that Brentford have spent on him, yes, he probably will push for that. And again, at 4.0 in FPL, that will want monitoring. We looked at Brighton wanting a right back. They bought a left back in Kadioglu. That does potentially allow Jack Hinshelwood to obviously cover on the right hand side and compete with Lamptey and Veltman. They probably think numbers wise they've got enough for that position at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if they add something else. They've gone a bit mad this window actually. Matt O'Reilly, who they bought from Celtics, a midfield player, got injured last night as well. We don't know the extent of that at the time of recording. I know there's a lot of love for Nedeljkovic, the young Villa right back at the moment, because Matty Cash is out for a month. But we did identify last week that we thought that was a position Villa would want to look at. They've been heavily linked with Gertruda from Feyenoord, and that's a deal I could see happening
Yeah, me too.
actually in the next couple of days. Manchester United, we think deal in place for Ugarte.
It's got the Fabrizio here we go, so I assume that's done. But yeah, we identified a holding midfielder, and we did also talk about profile, right? Like we had Spurs, Liverpool, Man United all needing holding midfielders, but I think Man United were the one that needed less of the ball playing one, maybe, and more of like a traditional holding midfielder. And you know me, I'm on the FB ref. He's in the 99th and 98th percentile for tackles and interceptions, so a bit of a hoover.
Okay. I'm very intrigued by Liverpool in the next few days.
Me too.
Very intrigued.
They've signed. Oh, go on.
Yeah,
What are you going to say there?
something's not right.
Oh, okay. What makes
They're
you say
either
that?
about to do something wild or something wild bad's about. I don't know. I just
What would wild bad look
White
like?
Trent going.
Ah, are you talking about? Are you reading into the body language?
No, I'm
Okay.
reading into the fact that he's got 1 year left on his contract. Doesn't make no sense to me that Liverpool aren't dealing with it. And for all I know, they probably are trying to deal with it, but it's not getting dealt with. And that's got to get a concerning aspect to know that on January the 1st, he can just go and talk to Madrid for free. Yeah, I'll join you for 500 grand a week or whatever. I think that's really big for Liverpool to deal with something here.
Yeah,
And
because
I
I
don't
think
know if someone goes, yeah, there's 70, 80 million with the year left in your contract, you might lose him for free on a pre-contract in 4 months. Like, do you blink if that sort of offer comes in?
yeah, because we both mentioned him in the summer, didn't we? And we I think we both just worked on the assumption like, oh, he'll get done after the Euros, he'll come back, pen to paper. But I haven't seen anything.
I'm still convinced it will stay at Liverpool. I'm not sure. I think Trent's going to. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just really suspicious.
Yeah,
Um, Chiesa is the name, Federico Chiesa. We think they're getting in, but it sounds like it's going to be a good fee.
they did confirm Mamadashvili, the
Ah, yes,
goalkeeper,
did. Which is a position they don't particularly need cover
but
for, but
he's going
succession
back on loan.
planning is what it's being sold on. Okay, so they've done some business. Um, Chelsea heavily linked with Ivan Toney last few days.
Thoughts on
I
that?
I think that will happen now.
Yeah, you don't
That's
think
my
he's going to
instinct.
the
Yeah,
Saudi
it
team?
sounds like the Osimhen deal's on quiet, and I'm suspicious that it might be your clubs going in for him, Clates.
Really
Yeah,
interesting. I personally, as an Arsenal fan, prefer a wide forward than an out and out number nine, but would never turn my nose up at someone of that quality. So yeah, we'll see. Have you seen anything or just a hunch?
no, it just seems like this Osimhen Chelsea deal with Lukaku going the other way seems to be like it's stalling. And I wonder if part of that is Osimhen thinking I would have maybe play Champions League football. Could be
Yeah,
if he
okay.
thinks that
One to
other offer
watch.
might be there. And Tony, I'm sure would prefer to go to Chelsea than go to Saudi.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd assume so. I just don't know how doable those deals are with
It
the
feels
fees.
like Chelsea are buying illegally because he's like 28, and Chelsea obviously don't buy proven Premier League players like that. It feels um, it would be a short term, I think, in the sense that I think actually even if they bought Tony, they're going to buy another forward next year.
How do you think he would actually fare at Chelsea?
It'd
Like
do
offensively,
fine.
they looked great on the weekend.
Yes, I think he would do fine. He can do the ugly stuff really well, and also is obviously a great finisher in around the box. I think he, as we covered before, his hold up play is much better than people give credit. Um, I can see that deal happening now. Actually, with Ivan Toney going to Chelsea, they're definitely going to get a forward in, whether it's a Tony, an Osimhen, or something else, a Jaden Sancho, whatever else they can find. Sancho Sterling swap is it's PSR related, isn't it?
Do you think that will happen
It's
then?
moved the salaries and moved the money, and I scratch your back and you scratch mine, and I don't think either club want either player. I genuinely
No, it's
don't.
just an accounting thing.
Don't. And I just think both clubs will be dealing with the same problem next year. United will be dealing with Sterling's wage problem, and Chelsea will be dealing with Sancho's wage problem. Just think one thing Chelsea have done this year over the last year or two that you have to give credit to, they've massively reduced the average salary per player. Massively. At Sancho's on some stupid stuff at Manchester United. He's not doesn't fall into Chelsea's line. So unless he's going to accept a massive wage reduction, still don't make sense to me. And United want to get rid of Sancho for similar reasons, you would think, which is partly to do with salary. And yet Sterling is on a stupid salary. So what is this? How are you?
No.
Yeah, it's all a little weird. Leicester signed Jordan Ayew,
Yeah, we had a forward
um,
in there.
which is an attacking player that they needed. Scored a really nice goal last night, actually. Um, we know that he's the sort of player that will put one in top bin every week. But no, he's probably a profile player, be good for Leicester with the change of style this year,
He's a hard-working player as well,
which is another nice way, Clayton, of saying he's a bit shit.
essentially.
Uh,
He's
Palace,
honest.
fa- Palace fans are very grateful for what he contributed to them, actually. The club I really want to talk about is Ipswich. We'd highlighted last week that I thought right-sided midfield would probably be the priority one for them, and they've announced the signing this morning of Chidozie Ogbene from Luton, who did really well last season, and I think he's a really good profile fit for them because Wes Burns has been playing the position where he can funnel back in towards right back, and Ogbene, as we saw for Luton last year, was very effective both offensively and defensively as a right wing back. He is essentially really probably a wide forward, but has played that wing back role really well. So that's a really cute signing, I think. And it's not the only one. Sammy Szmodics
Yeah, you're
obviously
quite high
scored
on them, aren't you?
on debut at Manchester City. They've brought Jack Clark in, who was one of the best players in the championship over the last couple of years, will play on the left-hand side. We think they've got an agreement in place for Lyle Foster from Burnley, which will be a loan with an obligation to buy. He was quite impressive for Burnley at the start of last season, then obviously suffered from mental illness and missed a significant portion of the season. But we liked what we saw of him at the start. They've added Dara O'Shea, who's a very experienced player, to go and play at centre back, presumably with Jacob Greaves when they play in a back four. They've added something in every single position, and a lot of it is what I would call lower end Premier League, higher end Championship. Like I'm not
Yeah.
sure what quite their level is. Clark's that, Szmodics is that, Ogbene's that. They're all in that line, which means I think if the worst happens and they go down, you would look at them if they could keep it together and go, they'll come back.
Yeah, and
Or the players will do so well that they'll get sold again and then you can reinvest. It's a really, really smart way of doing their business, what they've done here, I think. They've set this football club up for beyond this season, and I think they've done really well. I would probably go as far to say that if you said who's had the best window, I would put them right near the top now in
out of
terms of
anyone,
pound for pound of what they've done for their requirements. And I think they're now the three promoted clubs at this moment look the best equipped to stay up.
I definitely agree with that. Out of the three promoted, yeah.
And I think we, if you'd have said that I'd be saying that now in April, I wouldn't have believed you.
No, me either. Yeah, it's been very strategic in what they've done. And also the flip side of you say if they go down, they can either sell players on or they're well equipped to come back up. But even if they stay up, they've got a solid foundation there to then
Yes,
build on it as well. So yeah, really, really smartly done.
I think that's going to take a while to gel. But I think they've built smartly, and I think all those players. We can even put Amari Hutchinson into that category from Chelsea. We don't know yet if they're going to be good enough really at this level. There are a couple, like Ogbene's obviously got experience playing in the league last year, but it wasn't other Premier League clubs looking at him, for example. They've bought at that line of balance of are you a Premier League club, are you a Championship club? That I almost feel like it's really future proofed them. I'm really impressed with what they've done.
Yep, agree. Any more teams or players you want to touch on? I guess I'd probably say, obviously, we were working on the assumption Mikel Merino would get done, and that has been signed, sealed, delivered at Arsenal. I'm excited by him, to be fair. Not from a fantasy perspective, just I think the knock-on impact on what it will have in other areas of the pitch. I think it's a very smart signing.
Another club that needs a sign in is Everton.
Is that a segue or?
Sure show, really, Clates, but I've done it for you, mate. Little
Yeah,
by
so
little, we'll get there, mate.
we crisis club. So last week we touched on Napoli. They did win the weekend.
They won 3-0 at the weekend. Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, last week we weren't sure on a crisis club within the country, but I've thrown Everton into the mix and it's
Every Everton fan's just gone, don't worry, we won't win 3-0 this week.
yeah, things just don't seem great there this season. I think pre-season for me, I just never seem to put Everton in the category of thinking they'll ever actually get relegated. Like they get themselves dragged into the battle and then they find a way out of it. And this summer, when I was doing all my predictions with my mates and stuff, I just didn't have Everton in the conversation at all. And start of the season, they've lost, was it 3-0 against Brighton, 4-0 against your mob Tottenham at the weekend, and no goals scored, seven conceded. And this is maybe over-indexing stuff, but you see the clips doing the rounds of the fans with the players on social media at the train station, and it just does not feel in a good, healthy place at all. The reason I threw them into this was like, if the worst happens and they go down, they've got this large stadium coming that's really impressive as well. We speak about a team being future-proofed in Ipswich. I'm not sure Everton are if the worst happens.
Well, we don't even know who's going to be owning them this time in a few months as it stands. There's interest from John Textor, who's got, I think it's about 40% of the shares in Crystal Palace. We're going to be covering him on Money in Football and Patreon tomorrow. So the future of the football club is,
It's very
I don't want to
messy.
say insecure. We don't know what it looks like yet. And I'm not convinced that Textor's going to be the right solution there for Everton. Definitely be an improvement on whatever that 777 partners was going to be, because that probably would have folded the football club in a couple of years. I exaggerate slightly, but it would have been bad. The stadium will game change Everton, but it won't game change Everton overnight. I think Everton fans really want change. It's what they're hoping for. Oh, we scrapped, we survived every year. I'm sure there's a large proportion of Everton fans who completely understand the financial situation that the club has been under. There will be a group that also just want them to spend some bloody money, because that's all you hear from football fans, and spend some bloody money. And when you've got an insecurity about who's even going to own the football club, it's very difficult to go and buy footballers. It's certainly very difficult to go and buy good footballers, because a good footballer's going to go, well, what am I going to go there for at the moment? It's reality. It's a harsh reality of what Everton need to deal with. They've also lost players over the last couple of years for financial reasons. Um, the big bonus for them, I think, that this window is that they've held their best player in Jared Brantwaite. Jordan Pickford is still there as well. There is a base of something to build from as a team that will inevitably, at times that we least expect it, get results in games that we don't expect. Oh, they're at Villa this week and they've gone and won 1-0.
Clean
Who's going
sheet
to be
out of
that
nowhere.
surprised if that happens in game week 4, for example? Probably me, because I'll probably captain Ollie Watkins as it stands. But it wouldn't shock massively.
No, it's yeah, I don't know. This is unfortunately the year I think. Yeah, like I said, I've never actually predicted them to go down, and even in the years where they've got dragged into the battles, I've always said no. I think they'll get out of it. This year, I'm actually concerned for them, and for what it's worth, I do have a bit of a bias towards Everton. I really like them, like a very traditional, old school club. I like going to Goodison Park. It's yeah, I just look at them as like a fixture in the Premier League, but yeah, I'm a bit concerned for them this season.
There's every reason to be concerned. I don't think that's particularly in question. Any team in this league that loses 2 games in a row, scoring 0 and conceding 7, Ipswich is scoring 1 and conceding 6, just looks better, doesn't it? It's reality. Everton Football Club shouldn't be losing games like that. But I will remind you how they started last year. And lost 1-0 at home to Fulham on the opening day. And they were admittedly very unlucky in that particular game. They then lost 4-0 at Villa in game week 2. This sound familiar to where we're
Mm.
at now? Then they lost at home to Wolves in game week 3, 1-0. So went 3 games without scoring at the start of last season and lost all the games. In game week 4, people were already building their game at Sheffield United as like a relegation bloody decider, like because neither club could afford to be on 0 points after four. They weren't because they drew with each other. It was useless for both, 2-2. Then they lost 1-0 to your team in game week 5. And in game week 6, they went to Brentford and they surprised everyone and they played really well and they won 3-1.
Yeah, and like you say, if they actually went to Villa Park and did that in game week 4, not many people would actually be surprised.
Yeah. And then started a run. And even within that, like their next game, they lost to Luton. But then the following week, they beat Bournemouth 3-0, who they do play, I believe, at home this weekend. Saying you that Everton won't win 3-0 this weekend. No, they probably won't. I wouldn't be surprised if Everton have a few more bad results. Everyone was writing them off exactly the same this time last year. I don't think they're weaker than they were this time last year. I
No,
think
I
there is
think the
a
Onana miss is big, you know. I know there's the stats going around of with them. I don't like stats like that. I'll tell you why. Like, I think for what it's worth, the stat I'm mentioning is I think Everton had a better win percentage without Onana compared to with
yes.
him or something like that. And I just think stats like that ignore massive context in terms of the teams you play against. Like that they're in that run where they played without Onana, they could have played easier teams. There's so many different
You mean like
nuances.
the Harry Maguire stats about how good his run was, and then you see it's all like Europa League
Yeah,
games and
mate,
stuff like that.
Arsenal didn't lose a game with bloody Shokran Mustafi for months. Like, I'm not having these stats. I think anyone with a football brain can say Amadou Onana is a fantastic footballer. Like, forget the stats with and without him. There's other context to apply. Like, he's a big miss to their squad, and I'm not convinced they've replaced him very well.
I think he was wrong. A good player, wrong
Wrong fit.
team.
Yeah, do you think?
Yeah, they've got a deal in place for Oriol Mangala, who was at Nottingham Forest, with a loan with an option to buy. That option is quite expensive. I'm pretty confident Everton probably won't push through with that option next year, but that will be the effective replacement. He's a steady player, doesn't have the kind of drive of an Anana. But I think further up the field, they will have that now with Ilman and Dyer. Ilman, he scored last night for them in the cup against Doncaster. He's going to be a really popular player. What Everton, I think, need to do over the remainder of this window is get something reliable in the 9 position. A Chris Wood type, who's a player we'd mentioned last week, which I'm sure couldn't happen because Forest aren't getting the players they want. But that kind of type of profile player that you could rely on as the hold up play to bring some decent wide players and then die into the game. And if they get that, I think they'll be fine. If they don't get that, I still think they'll be fine because I think they will win games later in this season by keeping clean sheets and being strong defensively. This is a trait that we've seen from Everton previously. Sean warned us on correspondent weeks, don't go near Everton players at the start. We always start slow. Here we are again. And I'm fairly certain this time last year, everyone was going, well, they're gone.
Yep, you're right. Right, final section of the show. It's one of my favorites. Hit me with the nostalgia on this day. Last week was Newcastle in the 1990s. What have you got for me today?
So I'm going to take you back to August 28th, 2011.
Okay, should remember this.
Yeah, you might do. This was a couple of weeks after the London riots that then spread around the country. And of course, that started off in Tottenham, which meant that Tottenham's first home game of the season against Everton was postponed. So they didn't play their first home game of the season until game week 3, which was on the 28th of August and was against would-be champions Manchester City. To take you the story of the build into this game, Tottenham had played at Manchester United on the Monday night in game week 2. So everyone had played twice before we played once. We lost 3-0. We'd narrowly missed out on Champions League qualification the year before, and most of the summer surrounded the future of Luka Modric, who had briefly gone on strike. He didn't play at Manchester United, was back in the squad for this game against Manchester City, didn't look like he wanted to be there, was taken off with half hour to go. Everyone thought he'd leave before the window shut. He didn't. Chelsea were the only club that were firmly bidding, and Tottenham just flat out refused to do business with them. Modric would go on to have an absolutely brilliant season, and obviously become one of the greatest modern midfield players of our times at Real Madrid, and got the moves that certainly his footballing ability no doubt warranted. So there was a kind of a darkened mood around Tottenham. But we had some very good attacking players, right? You put Modric in behind Van der Vaart, Bale, Lennon, Crouchy up front. We had some good attacking players. Manchester City rots up as a team that had a chip on their shoulder, I think, against us because we'd beat them for fourth a couple of years earlier. And then the following season, they'd done the same to us, but a little bit more comfortably. Now it was, could they kick on to the next level? And this game, I think, left people in no doubt that they were going to kick on to that next level because they walked out of White Hart Lane 5-1 winners. Edin Dzeko scored 4. Sergio Aguero, who'd been brought, got the other. And quite frankly, they could have beat us by more than 5-1. Absolutely demolished us, Clays.
Oh dear. I don't remember the game, but I do remember a game week in FPL where Edin Dzeko had like a monster haul. And I think I may have owned him for that, you know. I used to like dabbling with City's attack because they always had like 4 strikers, didn't they, in that period?
Yeah, they had
Mm,
Tevez and
mm,
Balotelli were unused substitutes that day.
sure. And then there was another period where they had like Negredo, I think. I think that was a few years later.
Anyway, that game's not the main focus of on this day
Oh,
because after the game, I went to the pub and watched your team, Clates.
who are we playing?
Because
That was our,
if you thought my team was bad that day, it was nothing compared to yours.
can I
You
guess?
lost 8-2 at Manchester
Oh,
United.
well, do you know what? Some things have a knock-on effect because as a result, we signed Mikel Arteta. He then
That's
became
true. It's
then
very
became club
true.
captain, and he single-handedly saved the trajectory of my football club. So, Man United, thank you.
It was interesting looking at the player. I don't have the list in front of me, but after that game, I think you bought 5 players.
Yeah,
You bought a Korean player
Park
who
Chu
did
Young.
nothing for you. Was it Squillaci was one? I was like a couple of them were roping. It was like, oh, Mikel Arteta was at least in
I'm
there.
sure Mertesacker was another.
Yes, Mertesacker was one of them actually in
Yossi
fairness.
Benayoun on loan.
Yossi Benayoun on loan. Yeah, very good.
Do you know what that game was wild? I don't know if you watched that. Like every goal was top bins from Man United. It was like either a free kick or just Rooney top bit. It was just, I wonder what the XG of that was. I don't think it was 8.
I think it's one that's I mean, it's it's probably your worst ever Premier League result.
It was humiliating, yeah.
And yeah, it's arguably Manchester United's best, maybe. Um, and ultimately wouldn't win the title. It's worth saying the irony of this as well. United beating you 8-2 and City beating us 5-1 is we finished third and fourth respectively. You finished third, we finished fourth. So we were the 2 other best teams in the league, which gives you an idea of how far away United and City were in that particular season. They obviously both finished on 89 points, the Aguero goal on the final day. It was interesting looking back on the lineups from the game because I think it's always been sold as Arsenal were absolutely decimated that day with injuries. And you did have problems, there's no doubt about it. But when you look back at the team, it doesn't look that bad. Chesney in goal. Cole Jenkinson made his debut at right back, who would get sent off in the second half. Giroud and Koscielny at centre back. Johan Giroud went on to have a very good career, actually.
Mm,
I'm not saying for Arsenal necessarily, sir. It was always
no,
very reliable for Switzerland, as was Philip
for
Senderos,
Switzerland,
actually.
it
He was
was, yeah.
also a bit shit for Arsenal. Armand Traore at left back. All right with the ball, not so good without it,
Yeah,
admittedly. Francis Coquelin also made his debut in midfield. So you're 2 debutants at Old Trafford. I get it. But Aaron Ramsey and Thomas Rosicky with him possibly wants something a little bit more defensive minded in there, considering
just a little bit.
considering it was Coquelin's debut. But the front three of Walcott, Van Persie, and Arse Shaven was pretty good, mate.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, I think there's only a couple clangers in there to be fair, but that's what honestly that game. If you go watch the highlights, it's just one of the most clinical displays I think I've ever seen. It was yeah, and then obviously the red card didn't help, but yeah, it was just bonkers game, and yeah, it was just
That
embarrassing more
oh,
than
that red card
anything.
was near the game. I think it was already 7-2 at that stage, I think,
Well, was it
or so.
fair? But yeah, it was
The
just
worst one I felt was always the nanny goal in the second half, where he's like they've walked through you,
yeah.
and then he properly gives it the slowest dink you can imagine, like a Panenka penalty,
That
and
period
it
was just
crawls over the line. You're like, these lot are getting really humiliated here.
so I'm from North London and in my school, so I was in school at the time, there were a lot of Man United fans in my school in North London. And school that week was just horrendous. Like, you know, them days where you just go in, like cap on, hoodie up, like just Yeah, that is not fun. But genuinely, I'm someone that in life I try to see the positives and lessons in everything, and I genuinely think the knock-on impact of us signing Arteta to then become the manager, it was weirdly worth it in the end. But I think for Wenger more than anything, it was just humiliating. Like that period was quite within the Arsenal fan base, very divided, and obviously the Wenger out, Wenger in
Yeah, it really
camp
started
started
around
to
this point.
form, and
That's the
yeah.
poorest you were was about this point, I think.
Yeah, and I'm sure was that the game where he at one time at Old Trafford he got sent to the stands. I can't remember if it was that game or another one, but
No, I
oh, is that a
think
different one?
it's either the year before or the year after.
Right. But yeah,
Um, yeah, that was a game earlier in the season. I remember us having scored for you in that game and you lost 2-1. It was either the year before or the year after, I think. It wasn't the
right.
8-2 game when he the
Okay.
famous when he's standing above the dugout because he's like, where do you want me to go?
Yeah,
It
that's the
wasn't
one.
that game.
But yeah, no, I look at that result as like one of the most humiliating in his career, and yeah, it was just one that it took a while to get over that. But yeah, we obviously went on to finish
Particularly
third,
with the
which
rivalry that had built between the two clubs through the late 90s and the noughties, and even between Ferguson and Wenger themselves. Yeah, to lose like that there was if he'd not built up what he had in the bank with you, he'd have been in massive trouble. You drawn at Newcastle and lost to Liverpool in your opening couple of games before that as well. So you were 1 point from the first three games with like a -8 goal difference.
yes. I think it says a lot about the golf. Like you spoke about United and City were well away from the rest, but like the standard of the league, I think then was completely different to now. Like I don't think you'd see stuff like that now from people that end up finishing third and fourth.
I'd let you know at the end of the season, Clates. The Manchester United team, for the record, that day, no Rio Ferdinand, no Nemanja Vidic. There was without a couple as well. De Gea, and this was his first season with United. Chris Smalling and Patrice Evra as the fullbacks. Centre backs, Phil Jones and Johnny Evans. You conceded 8 here, Clates.
I think it's more
Midfield,
only scored two as well.
Nani, Tom Cleverley, Anderson, and Ashley Young. Up front, Rooney and Danny Welbeck.
Honestly, I'm telling you, watch the highlights. It is every flipping goal was top bins, and then a bit of Joga Bonita from Nani.
As ever, I will link the highlights in the bio so people can revel and enjoy it in the 8 goals
I've got a
that
feeling you enjoyed that one, mate.
Arsenal conceded. Well, can you imagine what it was like? The thing is, it was one of them you couldn't enjoy it properly. Like if Tottenham had won that day and then you'd lost that, oh yeah, Monday was going to be a write-off. But you couldn't enjoy it properly. It just became to the point. It's like, oh, they're going to lose worse than we did. I can't believe it. Um, I think there was headlines the next day, wasn't it? It was like Manchester 13, North London 3, and
Yeah,
something
it
like
was.
properly got hiding between us. Ashley Young scored twice and assisted 3 times. I'm gonna guess that would be what a 24 point haul in FPL.
Yeah, I remember that there were a lot of people in my school. We were all FPL nerds, and we were all logging on that Monday, checking our teams and stuff. And I remember one of my mates, he had Ashley Young in that. But yeah, there are a lot of people that had a few Man United double digit hauls in that. But yeah, not so fun
Uh,
times.
Welbeck scored. Rooney got hat trick. Just Rooney got hat trick. Two free kicks from Rooney and a penalty. Nani scored that dink, and Park Ji Sung also scored. Was another. It was an awful one that you conceded as well. Um, it was a shockwave result. Arsenal losing 8-2. It was the first time you'd conceded 8 goals in a game since the 19th century.
Wow,
I think it's 1896. You lost 8-0 to Loughborough. I
Jesus.
saw. So it's just the sort of shit that didn't happen. I mean, the scoreboard from that day is like fairly iconic image and stuff. But yeah, within that, yeah, I get it. You lost 8-2. You bought Mikel Arteta, changed the future of your football club. You had to wait a long time for it. I get it. How United fans, I'm sure, long for another day like that one. Big game at Old Trafford at the weekend. What do you fancy from that, by the way? United v Liverpool.
I think it'll be tight. I think I like this new approach with Liverpool. They seem a little bit more patient and stuff. So I think it'll be more controlled than the end-to-end games we're used to. I think Liverpool will do it. I think they'll nick it. 2-3-1 right now, I'd predict. What
Okay.
about you?
A big win for Liverpool with the two fixtures to got afterwards as well. Then they'll start thinking, it does feel like that. I wonder if Liverpool will feel that pressure if they win at the weekend. Then with Bournemouth, Forest at home, Wolves away, they'll start looking at thinking we can go here with City and Arsenal.
I would
And
say,
it does feel like you need to do that sort of thing to go with the two of you at the moment as well. But with you playing each other in five, there's obviously the potential for Liverpool to be above at least one of you
yeah, yeah.
if they obviously keep winning.
I said to my mates this weekend, like in the summer, I just thought it would be City and Arsenal for the title. I kind of dismissed Liverpool, but with their approach and how they're playing, I think it is sustainable. I think they'll be closer to it than I thought. I still think it will be City or Arsenal that win it, but I think Liverpool will be closer than I thought they would be in the summer.
I don't think we'll know with Liverpool till Octoberish period. We have to also consider here this could be a honeymoon period. Remember what we saw with Tottenham at the start of last season as an example. We don't consider honeymoon periods when they happen from August onwards, but
True.
this might be one. And also, I don't think the fixtures give us enough of a gauge to judge in the opening period. We'd only really judge Liverpool if it goes badly. So if Liverpool have won the first 7 games, that would be phenomenal. But other than maybe this weekend, you'd go, I expected Liverpool to get a lot of points from the first 7 games. So I don't think we'll if it goes well, we won't truly know till we get sort of October, November if they're going to be ready to go the whole way with yourselves and City. If it goes badly, we'll know that they're not.
Yeah.
So they're almost in a no-win catch at the moment. I wonder if there might be a psychological to the weekend. They're thinking we got to win now, or if they think, well, this run of fixtures is so good, we're happy to take a draw from this.
I don't know. I think
Interesting.
ignoring the title race is a big rivalry for them, right? So they'll want to go and get 3 points regardless.
I get that, but they've also had some difficult results there over the last couple of years. They haven't left there happy since Eric Ten Hag actually took over at Old Trafford. So they want to leave there happy. And it might be that a draw under the circumstances might not be terrible. You don't want to lose.
No,
Can't afford to
don't want to
lose,
lose
it
that
doesn't
one.
feel like. It's so mad that we're at this stage now with the quality right at the top for the title. They're looking at teams like Liverpool can't lose. Of course they can lose. They could lose on Sunday and still win the league. But it feels like that already from a psychological, because we can't judge on Ipswich away and Brentford at home to tell
No,
us what's going to happen with them.
no, very true. That's the Clayton and James show. Thank you very much. What's on
So
the
Trent,
agenda? Oh, go
Robertson,
on.
Jota, maybe all three.
Say that again.
Trent, Robertson, Jota,
All three, yeah.
maybe, maybe.
Enjoy.
I'll let you know.
What's on the agenda for the rest of the week?
Well, I probably shouldn't have spoken about United Liverpool too much. We're going to speak about it on tomorrow's podcast. I'll be recording with Gary Robinson, Dan Lord late tonight. I'll be out for you tomorrow. Clash of Correspondents, Manchester United versus Liverpool. Ask James on Friday. It's going to be at later time of 2 p.m. UK time, so that I don't cock up things and being out of dates. I've got stuff in the 1 p.m. press conferences because that stitched me up with Solanke's injury last week. This will probably date quickly. Yep, it dated really, really quickly. So we're going to try 2 o'clock this Friday for Ask James.
Lovely stuff. Everyone, thanks for listening. Give us some suggestions for topics you want covered because we do plan this week on week. Anything more from you, James?
No, that's it. Just be nice to each other, everyone. Thank you, Clates. Cue music, please, man child.